I was drafted to the OHL after my, at the time, Major Bantam year, your 15-year-old OHL draft. The next year, I really wanted to play Junior A, like Tier 2. And I was playing in Hamilton. I had one off, I could only play in Hamilton back then. They were very strict with the releases and stuff. And my goalie partner at the time was a really good goalie as well. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to keep both of you and bring in a 19-year-old. So you each kind of split a small portion of the games, 20% of the games. And we're going to give this guy whatever it was. It turns out I had an opportunity to go to another Tier 2 team, and the team said no. They wouldn't let me go. My advisor, agent, whoever at the time was like, there's a team in Finland, in the junior league in Finland, that you can go play for them in the top junior league in Finland. This, you got to think this is 2001. So I went there for a year. I played my grade.
So how old were you at that point?
I just turned 16, a week before.
Holy shit. So I was drafted by Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
I think I was going into grade 12. So and I went to Niagara Falls and was there, and I was homesick, literally, I know I'm the baby of 3 kids, right? And for me, my mental capacity, I just was not there, was not physically ready, right? I just was one there. I actually got sick. I was one of the top goalies. They wanted to sign me. They threw the kitchen sink at me, and I remember saying, no, I just don't feel comfortable. I remember leaving there. You were even younger than me, went halfway across the world, for crying out loud. How was your mental stability? How were you able to do that? Were you just ahead of your age, mature, or what happened? Were you just Welcome. It's David Chinelli here with DC Talks, the podcast you came to listen to, right? I got my good buddy with me today, right? Michael Ouzas. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on.
So those of you who don't know Michael, Michael is, you're a realtor in the space here in Toronto. Before that, you were a professional hockey player. Yeah. But our relationship goes way beyond that, way beyond that. I've known you for what, 20, 25 years, something like that?
Probably about, at least 20 years, 25, I think is probably, it was 13, I think, when you were coaching me way back. So probably 25 or so.
So that's how I know Michael. I used to coach Michael in a different life when I was a goalie coach at John Elkins Goalie School. So and that's how Michael and I met and kind of kept in contact. And when you're getting your license, reached out to me and figured out some offices. I told you a couple of things I thought and why you'd come to our office. And, now you're in our office. I think that's amazing.
That's it. I mean, thanks for the advice. That was, I think it was a great choice. Just over 2 years in and just trying to keep things rolling.
Nice. So a little bit of people that don't know Michael. So Michael comes from a history. Well, you have a family that's been in real estate. Yeah. So your dad is a realtor. Still is a realtor?
Still is, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously not in our office. That's why I don't know him. But I know. Yeah. So what about his history made you think shit, I want to do this? Because most people, it's the opposite, right? I talk to my kids. I'm like, you want to be a realtor? They're like, hell no. What was the aha moment for you?
That's funny. You know what? My parents have been involved in real estate growing up, my whole life. They were buying houses. They were renovating them. It's real estate's always been a part of our family. My aunt's been a realtor in the Niagara region for over 30 years now. And dad has been over a decade now. So, seeing him do the work and just I really enjoy real estate. I always have. And I got the bug when I was coming home from hockey season. I was renting every summer and, my parents were like, it's time to buy something. You can't keep doing this where, you're essentially to find a short-term 3-month rental in the city of Toronto, it's expensive, right? So you're just throwing this money away every single summer over and over again. And they're like, look, it's not that much more at the time. You could buy a condo for $300,000 back in 2013, 14. And the minimum down payment of that is obviously way less than what it is now, but it was not that much more than what I was spending in rent. Yeah. So it's kind of it's time to maybe buy something. And I did. And I bought something actually not too far from here, just on Manitoba Street, those lofts there. So I bought one of those. They were awesome units. Wish I still had it. That's my unicorn. But anyway.
That's right. Because when I sold that one property, you're like, I sold that unit in Manitoba. You're like, I remember that unit.
Yeah. Love that building. Yeah. And anyway, long story short, I got the bug and I renovated it. I rented it out on Airbnb back in 2014, before anyone was doing that. Airbnb wasn't that popular back then, and VRBO. And then a year went by and I bought another one, and I just kind of like snowballed from there, and I got the bug. And while I was playing, I really loved kinesiology. I was always like into training, still am, but I was like, you know what, I really enjoy real estate. Like I really enjoy what, the whole aspect of it. And when I was retiring, or before retiring, I was like, I could start my license online with Humber College. And so I was able to do my whole license basically while I was playing my last season. And I was like, all right, well, I got hurt, and I just basically was like, I'm done. Like I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I got hurt. I'm like, that's
So
it for
before
me.
we get to that,
And
so like, okay, so I was training you as a young kid. I remember that. What was your like high school? So did you start? You played, I know, the OHL from there, and then what was your I guess your trajectory, sorry, your history after that, after leaving? Like, so you went to, where'd you play in the OHL? So I met you when you were still a kid. And then when you went to the OHL, I wasn't allowed to coach it because John took over and then other things.
Yeah. So I played my minor hockey in Hamilton. I'm from Hamilton. My parents were still in Hamilton. We, they lived there. And then I was drafted to the OHL after my, at the time, Major Bantam year, your 15-year-old OHL draft. The next year I really wanted to play junior A, like tier 2. And I was playing in Hamilton. I had one off, like I could only play in Hamilton back then. They were very like strict with the releases and stuff. And my goalie partner at the time was a really good goalie as well. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to keep both of you and bring in a 19-year-old. So you each like kind of split like a small portion of the games, like 20% of the games. And we're going to give this guy like whatever it was. It turns out I had an opportunity to go to another tier 2 team, and the team said no. They wouldn't let me go. My advisor, agent, whoever at the time was like, there's a team in Finland, in the junior league in Finland, that like you can go play for them in the top junior league in Finland. Like this, you got to think this is like 2001. So I went there for a year. I played my grade.
So how old were you at that point?
I just turned 16, like a week before.
Holy shit. So back, I was drafted by Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
I think I was going into grade 12. So and I went to Niagara Falls and was there, and I'm like, I was homesick, like literally, like I know I'm the baby of 3 kids, right? And for me, my mental capacity, I just was not there, was not physically ready, right? I just was one there. I actually got sick. I was one of the top goalies. They wanted to sign me. They threw the kitchen sink at me, and I remember saying, no, I just don't feel comfortable. I remember leaving there. You were even younger than me, went halfway across the world, for crying out loud. Like, how was your mental stability? Like, how were you able to do that? Like, were you just ahead of your age, mature, or what happened?
I don't know. I mean, it was different. Like, you got to think back then, we're 2001, like iPhone didn't exist. Like Blackberries didn't exist. Like you're talking Nokia was from Finland. That was like the big thing there. So we went there in the summer with my dad. We like checked it out and like spent 2 weeks there. And then I billeted there. I moved back. It was right before 9/11. Like that happened like 2 days after I landed there, like, wow. But it was different. Like no cell phones. Like I had to, like, hey, mom and dad are calling me at 7:00 on a Wednesday night on a landline for like half an hour. And it probably cost them like, who knows how much money back then to make the call. Internet was like dial up. And my high school, I went to a French high school. It was a smaller school, and they were like okay with me doing courses online. I had to just email them in every like month. So it was like really before its time, right? Like now it's so common, but So
wait, you're in Finland.
Yep.
And you're doing school from back here?
Yeah.
So you didn't go to the school every day?
I did go to their school, but obviously I didn't speak Finnish. So I would do like all the courses I could handle, like that were in English, but like, it's Finnish. Like,
yeah.
So anyway, I did like English over there and a couple courses, but then the rest was all from here. And when the season was over, I moved back and it was so different there. Like I remember going there and cell phones were popular. Like none of my buddies had phones here. Like I'd never, unheard of, like 2001. And I went there and everyone's like texting each other. And I'm like, what is this like text message thing? Like, what is that? Like, I didn't even have a phone, and they're like already doing that. And I remember like going to this pop machine and like you could dial the number on your phone and like a Pepsi would like pop out of the machine. You'd be like, whoa, this is cool. Like I'd never seen anything like that. Right. Like it's just, this was so long before, and like cell phones, like iPhone came out like 08. So like we're talking like almost 8 years before that. So it was interesting. Anyway, I was drafted by Barrie, came back after the year in Finland, signed with Barrie. I knew I wanted to go to the OHL. And yeah, I played my first year in Barrie. I was traded to St. Mike's Majors, and
My old school.
your old school. Then
So in the first year, let me ask you. So did you get traded within the first year or no?
after the first year. So like when I first got to the OHL, like
Did you play a lot or no?
not really. I played. I think
So
it was,
this is the part I was saying. I know we
Yeah.
talked a little bit off camera about like, because I was
Yeah.
in the States and stuff too. Like I had bouts of depression. I had bouts of like, self-doubt and things too. And like, no one loved me. No one, like, it was really weird. I was 14 hours away, but it felt like as if I was eons away. And I said to you before, and you're like, no, I was fine with that. I'm like,
Yeah.
how? Like, you're not playing, you're not doing what you want to do. You have to practice every day. There's pressure on you. Like as goalies, I don't know if people really know what it's like to be a goalie, but basically every time you're playing, if the goal goes in, it's your fault. Basically, it doesn't matter if there was a 5-0, it's always your fault. You have a lot of pressure as a young kid. You get that too. And then couple that with being in the OHL, like you're away from home and you're playing with people like you don't even know, you don't get to play. And then I don't know, I had a ton of friends who were in the OHL, all had to go to psychiatrists in between too, every single. It was very like, one guy was drafted in the third round and he played less than a minute every game as a defenseman. And him too, like again, they're like, yeah, well, what happens? They're like, well, we have to go to psychiatrists. So there's a lot of mental things. And I'm surprised, like you're one of the few people that said like it didn't affect you that way.
Yeah, I mean, I was a third round of the O, and obviously not playing. Like you have pretty high hopes. Like you're a third rounder. At the time, only 2 guys could play. Now I think it's unlimited or whatever it is. On the first year, and it's interesting when I look back and reflect on it. Like I just really wasn't ready. Like you don't really know what you need to do to be ready until you're there. And I just wasn't ready from I don't think I trained that well in the summer. I don't think I was just there like all in. And like when you're 17, the reality is for most guys, you're probably not going to, or guys, girls, like if you're in the OHL and you're 17, the reality is you're probably not going to play that much, especially you're probably not going to play over your
But they don't tell you that.
20-year-old. No, and this is something where you just got to figure it out. And for me, my first year, I was like, there's that sense of entitlement where you think you should be playing more, and like, I'd get into games and wouldn't play that well, and like it just wasn't like good enough to play at the time. They sent me down to tier 2 a little bit. I got some games and I played really, really well there, like extremely well, which was great, but like kind of gave me that sense back of like, okay, I can still play hockey, but like, in practice, I just wasn't good enough. And like, there's a lot of elements there. And when I left that season, I was traded from Barrie to St. Mike's. And when I got to St. Mike's, that was very eye-opening for me. I got there, I had a decent camp and like I was in better shape, but like a good buddy like Justin Peters was there in St. Mike's, and like I'd never seen a guy work so hard in my life. And seeing guys like our buddy Andy Chiodo, like watching these guys work in the summer, when you see these guys, it's like, okay, like I think I'm close to there, but now these guys are like actually there.
Yeah.
And
well, I was told that from do you remember Anton, my old goalie partner at St. Mike's too? Like we talked about a couple of years ago. Now he's doing like a hedge fund. And he said the same thing. He goes, we always thought we were there. He goes, but when you look at the guys at the next level now, looking back, and he goes, they had that one thing that they would just kill people to get to that position, that killer instinct. It was just, it's all mental, right? It's everything. It's at the time you're a kid, you think you have it, but you just don't know. And it's sometimes just innate, right? It's just something innate. Either you have it or you don't sometimes, and other times you can, build on it. But that's exactly what you're talking about. You think you have it, and you trained with like Justin Peters. Then all of a sudden, did it push you then to be something?
It like lit a spark in me like none other. Because then, I mean, when you're going in your 19 year you're basically on your last string. Like you're on your last leg of, if you want to be like a player, like at 19 is kind of that make or break year for the OHL, right? So it's either you're able to play or you're going to tier 2 and then, kind of going the other direction at that level. Right. So
and for those of you guys that don't know that are watching, so we're talking all these things. So and here in Ontario, you have major, junior, basically it's kind of like a semi-pro. We call it like a junior A. Yeah. And then the next level is like junior A, but they call it tier 2. So he's using those two interchangeably. Then it goes junior B, C, et cetera. Right. So it goes OHL, junior A, junior B, C, D along the line. So so tier 2 is like basically the second level junior A. So what he's talking about. Yeah.
So anyway, like I just worked incredibly hard that summer, came in way better shape, like better like coach, like all of it was way better. The next year, the coach from St. Mike's went up to the NHL, and the coach from Barrie went to St. Mike's and traded me again to Mississauga. So I was traded by the same coach twice, which is pretty funny. But anyway, I went to Mississauga. I was slated to be a backup too, and I just kind of like just worked and eventually had a pretty solid year and just kind of like went from there. Went to university after 2 years there in Mississauga. I went to Owen Sound my overage year for just the playoffs. Then went to University of New Brunswick for 2 years and then signed pro 3 years in the minors and 10 over in Europe.
Well, so all this, and the reason I'm like, and the reason we're talking about this, guys, today, we wanted to see like the history of like some realtors. It talks, where is it coming from? Like, and now, and also leading up to like ourselves, like I'm finding that people that played hockey, played goalies, when they become a realtor, there's that competitive spirit's always involved. And people don't realize how competitive our industry is. Yeah. And I remember sitting down with Jim Ouellette, our recruiter, and we sat down. I think he said the same thing. He goes, "You're going to be a good realtor." I'm like, "What do you mean? I've never even sold anything." And he's like, "Well, you're a goalie." And he goes, and he just knew. He said something because he himself is a goalie, and it's like, there's something innate within sports that when you're in a sales job where the sky's the limit, that we always have a need to push and to be competitive. Do you find the same things out? Do you think that this helped you as being a realtor? What do you think?
Different, actually. Like someone asked me this, like, was like, is it really competitive? I'm like, I don't think anything will be as competitive for me as trying to stop that little black hockey puck. Like nothing. Like I don't like, there's nothing in this world that will like get me fired up the way, like just that level of intensity that I needed to try to stop pucks. I don't think I'll ever get that.
I'll agree with that.
Right? So
100%. Your heart starts pumping.
Just like the whole feeling, like you're in the arena, like there's like it's just like.
And when you're on the zone, like Cloud9, where nothing gets by you, just like it's just everything flows. It's like Neo in the Matrix. It just
nothing to me will ever get me there, right? So when it comes to being like quote unquote competitive, like for me, actually goaltending is more, the way it relates for me is more the monotonous day to day that I just try to do exceptionally well or as best I can. And like, if like goalie training is pretty boring. Yeah. Like when you really break it down, you're like,
gee, thanks. I did that for a little.
Gotta go. I did it for my whole life. It's like, you got to go from A to B, make a save, go to C. Like on its nutshell, it's like pretty boring. When you're building it up in the summer and summer training, like you're just trying to get like, can I get, 1 centimeter a little bit further or back in my crease, which will make maybe a difference of like 1 extra save a year. And like, all that to say is that kind of stuff is what I love training. And now coming into real estate, it's like, okay, I need to do. And we talk with Sam all the time. And like, Sam's like, okay, I just got to.
Sam's our manager for those guys that know.
Yeah. And Sam is an awesome coach. And she's like, you know what? Like, let's just try not to get too far this way or this way. Just stay in your lines and just kind of build and build and build. And I find like, if I can just keep getting that little bit better and better, when you first start out, you're going to make bigger leaps and bounds. And we were just talking off air and you're saying like, we were listening to somebody the other day and you've been doing a lot of that stuff. And for me, it's like, okay, well, I'm doing a portion of it, but not all of it yet.
Right.
And now when I start implementing all those things, then you're just trying to get like, how do you get a little bit better? How do you get a little more efficient? How do you, anything like, whatever you're doing is how do you get a little bit better? And when you get to a pro level of goaltending, it's like, I'm not adding 10% to my game every year, but if you can like add 1 extra save every few games, or like, if there's 1,000 shots and you can save an extra 10 a year, let's say like 1%, you're going to go from a 920 to a 930 or a 910 to 920. And that's only like in 50 games. That's like, 1 shot every 1 save every 5 games.
Yeah. Well,
if you had 1 save every 5 games, you literally are like an all-star, like best goal in the league in the NHL, or you're like average.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy when you break it down like that. And so it's like you're always just trying to get that little piece better. And I feel like in real estate, I'm still making, let's say, bigger jumps as I go along. But now, even as my processes get better, it's like just adding better elements, more efficiency, more processes, like stuff like that. So yeah, I find that part the most relatable for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talked before about scheduling and routines, right? So have you, like, remember we talked, like, I was on your podcast, we talked before, and you talked a lot about like what I do. And I've stressed this over and over again. And there's certain things I do in the mornings every single day, and it helps keep that monotonous. And that's part of the training, I think, as a goalie. Is there something you've implemented as well? Like you do the same thing?
Yeah, I'm pretty systematic. Like I mean, when everything's flowing well, I'm like up early. I like to get in the gym. I like to just kind of do my thing and then go to the office. I like being there kind of before everybody just to kind of get my day rolling. Because like once 9 o'clock starts, like we're live. Like the phones are ringing. Like that's just the way it is. So I try to get a lot of stuff done before 9. So that way, like, I wouldn't say I'm in cruise control the rest of the day, but I've already like hammered out the big elements that I need to get done for the day.
I tried one time, like once in a while, I'll try to take a break because it's like, lately it's been crazy, the market. I think the other day I tried to work out at 9 o'clock, just try to sleep.
At night?
Yeah. No, during the day. Like like I slept until 7, like that's sleeping in, like that's sleeping in. Time I got everything, the morning routine, like I pray, I do that. I'll get up, I feed the cats. I do all those things every single day. Like I read the Bible. I do all that every single day. And then by the time I'm like, I just want to do a later workout, right? I started 9 o'clock. It was the worst workout because my phone kept ringing nonstop, text message. It was like, it's the worst, right? It's like, if you almost have to schedule like a time, tell people you're off, it just doesn't work. It just, people don't understand. And I listen, I love this position. Like I love that about it. I would be a little more worried if my phone wasn't ringing, maybe, I think, but you have to build to that level, right? And it's when you first started out, like, and I know I was frustrated too, because in the beginning, like I didn't know what to do in this business. And you started, I think, how old are you when you started? Around the same age?
I was 35, 36.
Right, around 36, same age as I was. When you're so used to high level stuff, you just expect, you didn't know what to happen. And like, there wasn't really, I don't know, coaches back then were okay, but they weren't really teaching us. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, right? And and you just get frustrated. Like, where's this business going to come from, right? Like, I felt that was, they don't tell you certain things when you start as a realtor. The people don't realize is when you get a license in real estate, their job is to keep you out of jail. Right. That's what Oriel was. Right. That's why I say that basically, because they want to make sure. And I talk about that jokingly because they make sure, protecting your clients, protecting your clients, and then protecting yourself. And that's what we're doing. Right. But nobody teaches you how to find clients or make money. Did you find that frustrating?
Yeah. I mean, to your point, like, you don't really get the learning how to build a business in school. Right. So it's all the back end stuff and the ethics stuff and all that stuff. So, you know what? I was really lucky. I had a couple agents that were like, you can start with leases, and leases at the time, like, they're leases still, like, they're not cheap in Toronto. So like if you do a lease, and in essence, like obviously it depends on whatever agreement it is, but for the most part, it's a half month's rent. So I'm like, okay, well, I have a mortgage and I need to eat. So like, and I have obviously savings from playing, but the goal is to not use that up. I need to make money to keep going. So I'm like, I'm just going to do as many possible leases as I can. And I think the first year I did just under 50, and I was like, I'm going to just pedal to the metal. So you're doing like 5 to 10 a month basically. And I think people look at it like it's just a lease. I don't feel like it's just a lease. I never feel like it is. Like even now, like if I'm representing a landlord, like I don't feel like it's just a lease. That landlord's trusting me to do the best job I can for them.
It's harder to do leases because you have to make sure you bring in the right tenant. If you don't, then you're under a lot of scrutiny because you didn't.
Try, yeah.
So the realtor's position on that side, for those who are listening and don't know what we do on our, we try to vet through the potential tenants coming in. So they send us their documents, we call on our end. Like, so we try to do as much due diligence, check their history, call their employer, talk to their last landlord. Julia, my assistant, helps us as well, does a lot of that. And then we also tell the landlord to do the same thing. So we're trying to go through 2 different checks to try to do as well. But sometimes these guys, especially in Toronto, fall through the cracks. You get these deadbeat people that know exactly what you're looking for, and there's no amount of research. And if that falls through, they come back to you and say, "Hey, you leased this property to this asshole." And they come back to you.
I mean, we do our best, obviously. Like ultimately, like, I'm sure it's going to happen, but we do our best to try to mitigate that. I think the biggest thing when you're on the leasing side and you're the co-op agent, which is the person who brings the tenant to the landlords, there is a process there too. And like, I do think that having the help of a realtor that can help you navigate with the right documents, get you into properties like as soon as possible, be on the ball is really big. But for me, the big thing was it's teaching me how to learn where all the lock boxes are in all these buildings. It's getting me in and out of the buildings. It's knowing where the concierge is, the amenities. You're also learning the language, how to talk to clients for the first time. Like for me, that was all new. Like, I'm trying to, like, you just have to be able to talk to people in a way about the property. And it's not, you can't just walk in and be like, oh, here's the kitchen, here's the bedroom. Like everybody can see what that is, but you're learning how to navigate different things and look at what you're looking for and all that stuff. So you're getting comfortable there too. The paperwork, you're getting used to the paperwork and using.
There's a lot more paperwork with the leases, which is by the time it comes to a sale, you're like, whew, I don't only have to do this. That's even better.
But also like my first time, a funny story, like I didn't know how to use web forms. They don't teach you how to do this in school.
So web forms, guys, is it's an online property which we have all of us have access to it, and it's basically a database where you can put in clauses and what we fill in an offer electronically. So it's instead of doing it by hand, and like it has all of the documents we need to fulfill to fill out there. It's all in there. Yeah, and it takes a process in the beginning, and like we all have access to it, but some people still don't know. Believe it or not, still don't know how to use it.
I had no idea how to use this thing. I'm calling my dad. He's obviously. He knows how to use it, no problem. And he's trying to walk me through. And I'm like, just, now like to write an offer is much quicker than it was back then. But anyway, my first ever offer, I printed out and wrote everything in because I didn't know how to use it. And the time is like ticking and whatever. We didn't end up getting the property. Anyway, they had like 5 offers. So it didn't really, it went for way over anyway, but it was a big learning curve for me. And that's kind of like, I always think of it like, just like hockey, you have to like take a baby step or crawl before you start walking. And like I was talking about how, when you're at the highest of your level, you're trying to get that one extra save every few games. Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to get there, you need to make like several saves to like, of course, get to that level. Right. So it helped me a ton. And I know people like, don't always, they just think of it like, oh, it's just a lease because it's not at the grand scheme of sale, but it's like it was a big element in building my business. And I've met so many amazing people 3 years in, like now some of those clients are ready to look for maybe another lease or maybe to whatever. Like there's a lot of great elements there, and just meeting awesome people, but getting the reps in was huge. And the one thing with leases I think is like beneficial, especially, but it is a bit of a double-edged sword in a sense too sometimes for realtors, because like you can get a lot of leads, so it always feels like you're busy, but like it also, if you're looking to go into the buy side, into the sell side, you have to kind of be like, okay, where am I going to focus my time and stuff like that. So that was more the transition into year 2 and now year 3, where I've pivoted, of course, but I do think that was a big part of me getting rolling. Mm-hmm. And the other element of it is now when I represent landlords, I know what I'm looking for because I know what the lease process is like. Right. And I know if the paperwork's not good or whatever, and you kind of can decipher and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I got started. And now, year 3, things have been rolling, and I haven't done many leases this year at all, but I represent landlords mostly and more on the buy and sell side now.
So for, thought process and mental stability and things like that, what do you say to the user? Something you do to keep your head level in case things, because again, this business is it's very cyclical, right? In the sense that there's lots of, highs and lows, I guess you would say too. And what do you do to keep your brain focused and making sure that it's just like, you don't freak yourself out or get overtired when you're on the go.
Yeah. I'm a work in progress. Not going to lie. Still working on it. I feel like
we all are.
Yeah. I feel like I need to start baking in some like couple day breaks or whatever, like just bake in a vacation. I take my fiance, Laura, we can just go.
Who doesn't exist because I've never met her. Every time you come to my house to a party, she's miraculously never shows up. So I don't know.
Okay, she's coming.
I'm putting it on there miracle right now. I don't think she exists. People.
Coming next time. She's real. We're getting married in August, so you'll see photos. But
again, she's gonna be cut out, the girl that all I know, right?
I do have to start baking that in because I feel like there is an element of like, I felt like I had the gas pedal pushed down from basically January 1st till like May 30th, May 31st. And I didn't take a break for basically almost 6 months.
That'll kill you.
And I was like, okay, I remember sitting in the office and I said to Chris or Sam or whoever was there, was like, I just don't have it today. And it was Chris, and Chris was like, shut your laptop and go home.
You have to.
He was like, just give yourself a break.
I don't think, especially as men, especially we're trying to push it always and say like we need to be the breadwinner. Like it's just something innate in us. I think for most, especially us, the way we grew up as hockey players, always, you have those days in which I've learned how to learn just to shut down. You have to shut down because if you don't shut down, a couple things will happen for your mental stability. Right? One, you'll get frustrated with the job. And you'll start to make mistakes and cost a lot more money after that. And three, sometimes your body just tells you need to shut down or you're going to get hurt. And that could be, migraines. That could be physical. If you try to work out sometimes when you're not there, you might rip something and then you're in, and then it's just going to cause more and more damage. Sure. A lot of this business is recognizing where you are in your space. That includes physical and mental, right? A lot of that. And it has to be on your own shoulders because sure, we have coaches and we have managers, but we're not with them all the time. And we talked about this with Mac and Poli like a few weeks ago, was like, we sat there and we're like, you're alone a lot of times. So as much as you can rely on other people, a lot of it has to do with you and understanding yourself. I think that's part of the process, which I think as a hockey player and going away and being alone by yourself, especially a goalie, I think we spend a lot of times by ourselves already in that position and people don't get us as it is. I think it helps with the transition.
Yeah, I never really thought of it like that, but it's true. Like you're as a goalie, you're playing a different sport. You're on your own like team within a team, basically. You're still part of the team, but like goalie practices are by themselves with the goalie coach, and like we
used to dress by ourselves.
Okay, we still get ready in the same.
No, I'm saying I mean my goalie partner. I remember growing up, so we get when I was on Wexford, for example, we used to dress outside the dressing room and then come in when the coaches are because the rooms are too small.
Yeah. I mean, I think from that element, I do think there's like when you're just pushing the gas all the time, and same like when you're playing, like if you're go 100% of the time with no downtime, you really like in the season, especially in Europe, like you play your 8 months, then you get 2 weeks off of just nothing, nothing. Like I don't need to train, I don't want to see a gym, I don't want to do anything for 2 weeks. I just usually go on a vacation, and then you build up slowly, and then you add in weight training and then strength training, and then you get on the ice, and then like it's just like a cycle that repeats itself, right? But in our business, like really you're just always rolling, right? So, or at least you want to be. So it's a matter of just I'm trying to learn how to just balance that a little bit more and just have a little more like, okay, if I don't have it this week, or like you feel it, like I just like I'm at the office and there's times where I'm literally just staring at MLS for 6 hours. Like you know what I mean? You're just in that zone. I'm like, I'm really not doing anything to help my business today. Maybe it's just time to like
go have a couple of drinks,
go home, have a coffee, just turn my brain off for an hour or two, or read a book or something. So I'm trying to be a little more cognizant of that and like be aware of that, which is a challenge because, I always want to keep pushing the needle forward even a little bit. So that's the challenge.
Well, I think we're going to have to start to wrap up soon, but I think a lot of the take homes, I would say, for more of this conversation would be that a lot of it is, based on, learning and pushing yourself, knowing when to take your foot off the gas. And that's for kids too. Like when I played back in the day, I know I'm older than you, but when we were on the top team in Ontario for our age group, our coach at summertime would say, put your hockey equipment away. Play baseball, play soccer. He goes, do some training. He gave us like a light training workout, but do something else. Obviously, don't sit on your ass and watch TV and eat potato chips all day. He's like, but he goes, you need to, and Wayne Gretzky used to say the same thing. People don't know who Wayne Gretzky is. I'm sorry. I'm not going to explain who he is. But he would say the same thing, right? He's like, and I felt that got me the love of the game back when I hit, when I was at training camp. So that's kind of and I find that with real estate too, that coach, one of the reasons why I chose the coach I did, which was Rob Vivian at the time, he would tell us you work, 11 weeks, take 2 weeks off, work 11 weeks. And I that helped with mentally, really like a lot, allowing to bake in like vacation times before the pandemic. My wife and I we'd take the kids to Aruba in February, and then we would do like a European vacation for a couple of weeks. And it was baked in there. Like, and that's the other thing. Sometimes we have to learn how to let things go and like, you know, the world won't stop. My business won't stop just because I'm not in it all the time. And I think that is the hardest part of being a realtor, you know, and an entrepreneur in general.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of looking at it, and definitely something I got to start doing moving forward. And now I'm starting to get to the
It'll
point.
help your business. Yeah,
and I agree with that. And the one thing I do remember with hockey was like you'd bake that in, like you're still training, but like you train hard, like in a gradual buildup for 5 to 6 weeks, and then you take a week of like an active recovery, and then you come back at it. And it's like it's weird because that active recovery week is like you feel like, okay, I'm going to lose everything I just built up, but actually
come back stronger.
You come back way stronger. And then even with skating, I usually would take like, you know, almost 3 months off of skating altogether. And then just now it's a little bit different, but like I used to get excited to go back on the ice. And then I would maintain that excitement the whole year.
I just think that nowadays, the kids just push too much. And I just think they're just doing it all the time. I've seen kids get burnt out.
Yeah. It's different. I think now, just the way training is, I think if it's got to be very strategic in how these kids are, you know, coming back to the ice. And I do feel there's an element of like everyone's getting better all the time, and they, you know, there's an element of there, but that's why there's a lot of really good coaches that have like these kids have really good plans now, from really good coaches. And I think that's huge, but yeah, no, it's, something in real estate, like just getting used to that now. And I think year 3 and obviously next year will be year 4. It's like, okay, well, I need to plan this in, like planned in, where it's actually like in my calendar, it's going to happen, and then book something. So
when you do that, we'll have you back and see how it's changed your business.
Yeah, I hope so. I was just in New York on the weekend, so that was like a good refresher. And now like I came back, I'm like, okay, like I took basically 4 days off for the first time in a while. And I'm like,
nice,
back at it.
So we're wrapping up now with episode 25. I don't know if I mentioned that in the beginning. This was episode 25 with my good buddy, Michael Ouzas. So on your closing notes, Michael, for somebody, again, you're relatively new in there. If somebody's looking, you know, they're starting out, you know, and I always ask this to realtors to the beginning, like 1 or 2 pieces of advice you'd like to give them, and we'll close up after that.
Yeah. I think it's huge to have like find people that can help you, like mentors, or that you can shadow or help out, or like, you know, ask them if you can help them with whatever they're working on and see if you can add value to their business. Or if you don't have that kind of network or framework, like I remember, like, I mean, I called you like several times and you were so gracious for me. And I had my dad, which is a big, you know, someone I could just call like without any kind of, like I just call him at any time of the day, and he'd be
your dad. He should answer.
But he'd be answering questions for me that like if I didn't have that all the time, like it's a business with a lot of questions, and you're going to want to ask questions, and
well, people don't. I still ask tons of questions too all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's number one is don't be shy to ask questions for sure. If you don't have anyone to have that support network, maybe looking at a team element might be an option where you can get that support on a daily basis, because like there's a lot of things to learn, especially as you get going and then moving forward, still learning. So I would say like those are 2 elements where ask a ton of questions if you can get the support. And if you can't get the support from your network or whatever, then maybe a team is the option. And don't shy away from leases at the start. Just make sure that you're able to keep building your business and working on your business as well.
That's amazing. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you that, if you like this content, obviously we'll always ask you to like, share, subscribe, follow Michael on Instagram. And so like, that's where I follow you. Where are you on Instagram?
At Michael Ouzas Real Estate.
How do you spell your last name?
Ouzas.
Yeah, for something, because you say there might be a mistake on there somewhere.
No problem. Yeah.
I'm David Vicinelli _realtor on Instagram. I think that's my Instagram. You can follow me there. We'd love to for you people follow on YouTube, because we're getting some more subscribers. Love to for you people and if you don't know where to follow me there, I put a video on Instagram, because we have a link tree on there you can do for audio and video podcasts. So all right.
Same.
So thanks again for coming. We'll really appreciate it. And tune in for next week. I'm not sure what the topic is for next week. I'm not sure, but I'll let the other guys figure that out. But yeah, thanks again for coming, Michael. Awesome. I'll let the other guys figure that out. But yeah, thanks again for coming, Michael. Awesome.